welcome everybody. I hope you guys enjoy this talk. Some of you might have heard this talk. The special thing about my talks is I'm always doing research. So even though you think you thought you saw the talk, you're going to actually learn something new with this talk that the previous talk did not learn. Very interesting. So the subject of today will be indigenous skies and space travel, or paleoastronomy. We're going to be covering both contemporary and archaeological astronomy, the stars, star mapping, star charts, the whole shebang. Like they announced, I am from the Hia-Ced O'odham nations and the Tarahumara. And we're actually going to get into a few of those cultures as well, as we actually have star stories with our nations as well. So it's all going to be really good stuff. So let's start. We're going to begin with NASA. That's right, NASA. There were indigenous people in space. How many people knew that Native Americans were a part of the space program? Wow, so we got a lot of people who are going to learn a lot of stuff today. So just a few of the nations that were a part of the NASA program currently, not just in the past, but currently. We have the Mescalero Apache, the Kuruk, the Dene. For those people who don't know, the Dene is actually the indigenous name for the Navajo, as well as the Comanche and the Mississippi Choctaw. The most recent astronomer is this lovely woman right here, Nicole Mann, who is from the Walakai Nations. Her most recent mission was on SpaceX. She was part of the Dragon 5 crew. Nicole is a part of the Walakai Round Valley Indian Nations and a part of the Dragon Crew 5. They actually launched 2 years ago, October 5th, 2022. So she's the most recent indigenous astronomer that's been a part of the space program. She's also credited with being the first indigenous woman in space and the first woman mission commander of the SpaceX program. So she actually has a lot that she's done in her resume just within the last 2 years. Other than Nicole, we have John Harrington. He's from the Chickasaw Nation. He was the astronaut for the International Space 7. His mission was STS-113. Harrington would complete a total of 3 spacewalks, and this totals over 19 hours and 55 minutes in outer space. So basically, those, they look peaceful, but when I watch them, it's terrifying because I know what space does. It's a harsh environment, it's unforgiving. So when you watch NASA and you see those really calm, serene videos of that astronaut holding the pole, very focused, what he's doing is he's making sure he's not sucked out into the void. And so to be a person to complete 19 hours just holding the pole, doing spacewalks, that's quite an accomplishment. So that takes nerves of steel. The next person is William Pro. He's from the Choctaw Nation. William was actually a part of Skylab, mission SLM-3. During the mission, Pro will log in over 2,000 hours in space flight, both as a pilot of the Skylab 4 and 2 orbital EVAs. Pro would also act as support crew for the Apollo mission, but because Apollo got all of its people to space, he was just kind of on reserve. So the Skylab missions are the only missions that got him to space. Prior to his career, he was also a part of the United States Air Force Thunderbird Squadron from 1955 to 1957. The Thunderbird is an indigenous story. So fun fact. Finally, we have this person, Mary Golda Ross from the Cherokee Nations. She's probably one of the most important people that we know because she actually contributed to the formula that made rocket fuel. The woman you see right here, her mathematical equations made space travel even possible. So without her calculations, her mathematical prowess, we might have gotten to space, but maybe like a full 2 decades later. So the Russians would have beat us to space, pretty much. Mary Ross was instrumental in the Agena rocket project, which helped the Gemini missions for manned space exploration. She did work in hydrodynamics and also make the flyby missions to Venus and Mars possible. So basically, the flyby missions were missions that NASA did to kind of preemptively scout out both Venus and Mars. The 1950s were full of movies with tropical forests and weird monsters on Venus and Mars. Ray Harryhausen movies. But her missions were kind of vital to see was that even the case with Venus and Mars? And so she's responsible for some of the first scouting missions to our two closest planets to Earth. Mary's involvement in skunk works also involved design concepts for interplanetary space travel. So the cool thing about Mary and skunk works is because of her work and because of the nature of NASA, she has work that's still classified by the United States government. So we don't even know what she fully worked on because technically that work is still classified and under wraps. She took with her national secrets as far as how we got to space, how we got to Mars, how we got to Venus. So she's a very crucial person, and we definitely want to highlight her in this talk. Now, these people are not the only people at NASA who are indigenous. This is a recent poster that was released by NASA, and it is recognizing diversity, honoring heritage. But each of those little pictures there is an indigenous person that currently works at NASA to this day. This is a recent poster they just released. So just to name a few, there's Yazzie, Erin Yazzie, who's of the Dene, Carol Hartman, who's from the Southampton County in Virginia. Let me see, there's Edward Gonzalez, he's Apache. George, he's from the Pueblo of Laguna, New Mexico. Janine Lynch, she's Cherokee. Michael Liu, he's Navajo, which is Dene. And then right below him is Orson John, who's Dene, Navajo. So this is 21 individuals currently working at NASA. Mind you, this might not even be all the people that work at NASA who are indigenous. These are just the people who agreed to have themselves portrayed on the poster. We could actually have even more people working at NASA who are indigenous, which is quite a good thing. One of the most recent indigenous projects that specifically Erin Yazzie worked on, who's Dene, was the Perseverance rover. The Perseverance rover launched during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it is currently looking for life in the Mars Jezero crater. So the rover basically is searching one section of the crater, and because of the indigenous involvement, they're currently naming rock formations on Mars after indigenous names. So a few of them is this word, Ma'az, and I am not Dene, so if there's a Dene person in the crowd, feel free to correct me. But this is the Dene word for Mars. This word right here is for red rock, Yego is for diligence, Sieta is for among the sand. So these are currently names that are being submitted to the national naming. There's some kind of organization to actually get them officially named on the planet of Mars. Along with that, the Perseverance project had actually a very interesting thing where you could actually submit your name and it was put on 3 microchips. And those microchips were physically attached to the rover and then sent to Mars. So among the interstellar travelers that went to Mars are Brad Pitt, Snoopy, and a familiar name right there, Joshua Ballze. I have my interplanetary ticket that I got in 2020. So I'm officially a Martian, everybody. I know people want to take pictures. We'll pause here for a second. So we can talk about the passport, right? So I got over 313 million award points for my trip to Mars. My rocket was the Atlas V 547, again, Jezero crater. We launched from Cape Canaveral, Earth. It's funny that they have to list that. So yeah, this was a fun science outreach project they did. And legitimately, we did get our name on Mars. I am on that microchip that actually landed with the rover on Mars. So if we ever colonize Mars, tell your great-great-great-great-great-grandkids to look me up. So all right, let's get into paleoastronomy. So we're going to cover a wide range of subjects. Normally around this time, because there are certain indigenous nations that see the eclipse as taboo. We take a moment to let people know there is going to be eclipse imagery, but I don't think that's the case with this crowd, so we can kind of power through. So one of the first things we're going to cover is the painted cave. This is Chumash, and they cover solar eclipse pictographs. So basically, for the longest time, people were trying to guess what these were. This specific cave is in Santa Barbara. And frankly, it was kind of a aha moment, but also a doy moment, because they were like, well, they kind of look like stars. And mind you, this is after decades of trying to interpret, what's this circle? And someone finally looked up and said, well, it's probably the sun. And everybody kind of like, whoa, you just blew your mind. So there you go. But we tell this because it's interesting. There's certain taboos that exist within indigenous people, indigenous representation. One of the hardest taboos that we try to get over is that we're this kind of throwback culture, akin to like Cro-Magnon man and the caveman. We never achieved accomplishments that every other culture in the world achieved. We did achieve architecture. We did achieve star charts and just observing basal astronomy. We achieved a lot of things that a lot of cultures also achieved around the world. So highlighting this subject and moving forward is a huge thing for indigenous people to kind of break those stigmas. Yes, we did do this. Yes, we are part of the space program. Yes, we are still actively active in space travel. Like I said, I'm a Martian. So one of the cool things about this pictograph is there were results that were consistent with a theory that one of the figures may represent a solar eclipse that occurred on November 24th, 1677. And the way they honed in on that was they actually did a tiny pigment sample from one of the black discs outlined in white. So it's possibly this disc right here, which is sadly heavily vandalized by tourism, but that right there is possibly a pictograph depicting an eclipse because the carbon analysis matched up with a certain date that matched up with a certain celestial event, specifically the eclipse of 1677. So here's some close-ups of that same pictograph. So again, this is the one that is possibly the eclipse pictograph, but you can see that part of what we're doing here with this program and with the sponsors, with their generosity, is we're actually contributing to future conservation. Sadly, this vandalism was not recent. This is very old vandalism that happened, and sadly, this site has been vandalized even more, to the point where the state that has a lot of these sites, and not just one state, many states are starting to close their heritage sites to kind of stem back what is basically heavy tourism-inspired vandalism. We're losing a lot of our heritage sites. So these talks and these images, sadly, will be some of the last pristine images of these sites for propriety until we have very, very, very sophisticated conservation technology. But just to give you a close-up of some of these cool sun-inspired pictographs, again, these are all from the Chumash Nation. This one's one of my favorite. We orientated this way, but it actually goes up a wall vertically, and it's huge. Like the disc on it is almost like this big. It's pretty impressive. So there's an argument that can be made like, okay, well, you got the carbon dating, you did the pigment test, but how do we know this is going to be an eclipse or a star, even though it looks like the sun? This is where this cool pictograph, petroglyph, technically, my correction, petroglyph comes in. This squiggly guy is actually a very important petroglyph. Does anybody know what this is? It's the sun, but do anybody know what the squigglies are? Oh, we got a lot of educated people, I love it. So for those of you who couldn't hear, these are coronal mass ejections, or basically arcs of plasma that come out of the sun. The sun as we know it is actually very, 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 very active. It puts the volcanoes in Hawaii to shame. That's how active the sun is. So this is known as the Chaco Canyon eclipse petroglyph. It possibly dates to, they're thinking the eclipse it aligns with is 1097 AD. This is based on calculations of the orbit of the moon and the earth. There's a paper that was released by Melville that noted the total solar eclipse was visible in Chaco Canyon around July 7th, 1097. So that's the possible date of this specific pictograph. Petroglyph. So to prove the hypothesis, because again, this is a hypothesis, the paper author collaborated with astrophysicist Jose Vaquero, who specialized in reconstructing the solar activity of the past using evidence left behind on the Earth. The source he used was trees. So with his research, To break it down very fast, because there's a lot here. So when the sun's rays strike atoms in the Earth's atmosphere, they can create radioactive molecules called radionuclides, including the radiocarbon used in dating organic material. Those radioactive molecules get bound in living matter, like trees, and by analyzing how much radiocarbon is left in the samples of the tree rings dating back to a certain year, scientists can then extrapolate how much energy the sun was shooting towards the Earth at the atmosphere at a time. The more active sun is more likely to be shooting off coronal mass ejections irregularly. The Chiaro's analysis found that the sun reached a maximum activity in its cycle of magnetic activity in the year 1098, just 1 year before the Chaco Canyon eclipse. This means the Pueblo people that year saw a sun in a great state of unrest being blocked out by the moon, and he notes the coronal mass ejection during the eclipse is a strong probability. So that's a lot of words to say. The sun shoots radionucleotides at the Earth. If you're an organic creature, any organic creature, including plant life, you absorb radiation. We actually all absorb radiation day to day in our daily lives. We actually need radiation to thrive. During an eclipse event, there's an actual heavy series of radiation that actually gets projected toward the Earth. That's what their theory is. So the way they guessed it was basically they were kind of mainlining how much radiation all the plants were absorbing, and then there was a spike. And they say that spike aligns with the eclipse event that there's recorded right here. So that's a fancy way of saying like they just measured the trees and this is what they got. But it's still a very impressive work as far as like analysis goes. Now, being Hia-Ced O'odham, this is a cool painting that I did. This is our eclipse painting. And our stories with the eclipse vary. It varies nation to nation or indigenous nation to indigenous nation. Our story is, our word for the solar eclipse is muhektas or tasmu. So tas is the actual word for star, but we actually use it interchangeably for the sun. The story revolves around the sun and the moon. So here's the moon, here's the sun. And during an eclipse event, they're known as two celestial lovers that kind of come together. That's the only time they get to embrace. It's very reminiscent of some of the Plains nations on the East Coast. They have kind of a similar story. The difference is our story, it's kind of a taboo event. We're supposed to respect this joining of the celestial bodies. And according to O'odham tradition, it's very dangerous for women, specifically women who are pregnant, to witness an eclipse because it's credited with giving birth defects or even a miscarriage. So if you're a woman who's pregnant, you're supposed to kind of respect this joining of the celestial bodies. Otherwise, you're safe. But during that certain event, it's kind of taboo. So other eclipse stories, and this is a close-up, so what that writing says is just basically it's O'odham, and it says mas tasmu or muhetas, and then this is masa, because the O'odham word for the moon is masa, so we also have a word for the lunar eclipse as well as the solar eclipse. So our word for the lunar eclipse is mu masa versus mutas. Other artwork that's indigenous, so this is an eclipse with crown dancers. This painting was done by Yavapai Apache artist Gordon Lewis. The particular ceremony basically holds celestial meeting, and even the crown dancers themselves actually hold star symbols. This star symbol, which is kind of hard to see, but that's actually supposed to be the North Star that's on one of the crown dancers. And this is kind of across the board for a lot of the Apache nations, because there's more than one Apache nation. Not a lot of people know that. But with the crown dances, we do get a uniform symbolism that kind of carries over each of the nations, basically that North Star symbolism. And then this is another fun O'odham story. So our relationship with the sun is kind of like, with O'odham stories, I tell people they're kind of like Greek tragedies. They have a lot of meaning, but the symbolism is more about the story than it is like a life lesson or some kind of moral story. So this story is about an entity known as the sun eagle. And the sun eagle story was basically created by Tas, who is the sun. And he created the sun eagle because the people tried to capture the sun and force him further into the sky so that he wouldn't burn them all and scorch the earth. The lesson is, though, instead of the people asking the sun, can you move higher in the sky, they instead tried to trap him. And it was kind of a form of disrespect. So the sun, to kind of teach them that lesson, gave a potion to Gopher, who's a very powerful medicine man in O'odham traditions, and Gopher poured the potion into the water. And the trick was the sun didn't tell Gopher what was going to happen. He just kind of gave him the potion like, let's see what happens. And Gopher was like, okay, you're the sun. Why would I argue with the sun? And what happened was a hunter came and drank from this potion and became the sun eagle. And the sun eagle is this monster eagle, like the Rock of Rhodes, who people familiar with mythology. It's a giant bird. And it would just terrorize the people. It terrorized them so much that basically the people had to employ First Brother, who was Ithoi, to kind of intercede. Ithoi is like the creator. So they had to ask creator, hey, can you deal with this giant bird that's killing us that was created by the sun? And Ithoi was like, yes, but you need to take the lesson away from this. So that's our relationship with the sun. The sun is something that has to be respected, which is usually very common with a lot of indigenous stories. So here's a closer look at the painting. This is actually a Huhugam symbol for bird. The Huhugam are the ancestral people that became the O'odham and a lot of the Southwest nations. So he includes some of that symbolism right here. He also has a bird symbol on his chest, which is found in a lot of pottery. There's the sun, and these are actually symbols of water to kind of pay homage to the potion being poured into the water that had to be drank in order to become this monster eagle that just terrorized everybody. Some of the other petroglyphs and pictographs that we have, this is a possible supernova pictograph that's in Baja, California. So it's really hard to see, but basically we have what is the planet kind of split into light and dark with the sun kind of setting. The pictograph is theorized to depict the light of the supernova that formed the Crab Nebula. The light of this event is estimated to have reached Earth around 1054 AD. So those of you who don't know, light travels at a certain speed in space. So an event like a supernova that happens that you're seeing usually happens like tens of thousands of years beforehand. The light is just barely reaching the Earth. So you're barely witnessing that event that happened thousands of years ago. This pictograph is located in Baja, California. It is credited with the indigenous Cochimi nation or culture. That is an ancestral culture, so they are a prehistoric culture. The nearby archaeological findings also associate the mural to the Kamandu cultural complex. So it's kind of like the Clovis people analogy of that specific area. So we did some reconstructions, because that's my forte. So what I did was I got this historical photo and we enhanced it with pigments. So this is what the pictograph would look like if it was like a little bit more newer. And the way I came to this reconstruction was we actually referenced a paper that did a sketch. And then from that, we went ahead and reconstructed the pictograph to show that possible supernova event that's associated with the Crab Nebula. This is not the only celestial pictograph, though. There's a lot of possible, these are pictographs that are associated with supernovas around 1054 AD, the Crab Nebula. So we have the Baja, California, we have White Mesa, Arizona, that's this one right here, Navajo Canyon, also Arizona, and then Chaco Canyon, that's in New Mexico. This one's really fun because along with a supernova pictograph, it also has a credited comet pictograph, which is just as cool. This is from 97 when this was actually constructed. Sadly, the rate of decay for exposed pictographs are so high that you can't even see the tail of that pictograph anymore. And that's not because of vandalism, it's just because of the exposure to the elements where these pictographs are actually done. So right here, what I did is I took a photo of the original. So that's the original right there. As you can see the red tail, you can see the yellow-red pigment, but you can't see the detailed arcs that you see from the tail of the comet. But what I did, because one of my specialties is digital illustration, also reconstructions, is we actually reconstructed this pictograph. So this is the reconstructed pictograph, and close to what it would look like when it was a little bit more new. So as you can see, this is a really brilliant colors right here, and this kind of throws people off. So that supernova pictograph is up there. What you're doing is you're looking up at the roof. So what you see here are actually birds' nests that have to be cleared out periodically because they just kind of have a cozy home in there. So along with this comet illustration, the O'odham also have comet representations. This is what's known as a calendar stick. This specific calendar stick is actually in the collections of the Heard Museum in Phoenix. So this is the full calendar stick right here. This is the section that actually has the comet. That's the comet right there. So let me see here. There we go. So the calendar stick is a reconstruction, but the reconstruction of the calendar stick is credited to be between the years of 1856 and 1859. That's the comet event that specifically the Hia-Ced O'odham are credited to have witnessed. So that's this specific calendar stick right here. And that's the comet right there. So our comet story is actually really unique because basically this is art that I did, but there's the comet symbol. The comet story follows two siblings who left Earth for the sky to kind of escape persecution by the people of the time. And so when they when they left for the heavens, they both became stars. They were a brother and a sister. The brother specifically became a falling star. As you can see right here, he's falling to the Earth. And the story of comets or meteors is if the O'odham people were to see a comet or feel a meteor crashing into the Earth, it was brother's way of telling us there is an enemy approaching or there is an unknown event that's kind of on the horizon. So it's kind of a warning for the people to be like, be on your toes. The comet has landed, so our brother in heaven is kind of forcing us like, just be very wary. One of the more interesting comet depictions is what's known as a sky panther. Sky panthers are more associated to the eastern nations, plain nations on the East Coast and on the Great Plains. These are all kind of lumped into one group called the Mississippian cultures. That doesn't mean that they're all in the state of Mississippi. That just means the Mississippi River, which kind of cuts through the entire East Coast and east side of the nation. Every culture that was along the river of the Mississippi is credited to be a Mississippian culture. So some of the names for a sky panther who's affiliated with a comet is, I'm going to try to say these words as best I can, so bear with me. But there's the Tuscocora, so they have the word Cahastenes. The Ojibwe have the word Mississippi, which is close to the Mississippi. The Seneca have the word, and this is a tough one, Gasiadenya. And then the Mohawk have a variation of Cahastenes, which is Cahasianes. So these are all names for sky panther that is a kind of a comet. The story with sky panther is very interesting. So sky panther, which is this creature right here, is credited to dwell in the deepest parts of the underworld. Basically, the underworld is credited to be underwater for a lot of the creation mythos of the Eastern nations. So because sky panther burns so bright, like a meteor, he has to dwell in the deepest part of the underwater world, or else if he comes up during the day, the whole world will be engulfed in flames. So what the story goes is if you saw a shooting star or a meteor at night, that was the sky panther escaping from one great lake to another great lake. And he has to do it before the sun rises or else the whole world is engulfed in flames. And we think the whole world engulfed in flames symbology comes from basically if you're near a meteor impact, kind of like movies like Armageddon and Deep Impact, everything blows up. So that kind of correlates with that story of like, okay, if you're close enough to a meteor, you're gonna get swallowed up in fire. So that's why they say you have to respect a comet when it's flying over into the next part of the deep underwater world. This specific piece of pottery is from Carr et al. 2021, so this is a recent paper. But this piece of pottery is in the Gilcrease collection. That's the last recorded place of this specific artifact. It's in Oklahoma. On one side of the pot is a water panther, sky panther, correction. On the other side of the pot, that's his face. So that's the face of the sky panther. And then on the bottom of the pot right here is these sun or star symbolism right there. So this artifact is very tough to track down. I've tried to track this artifact down for like 3 years. This diagram is the closest I've gotten to track this artifact down. So the sky panther symbolism is very, very, very rare. But it's not so rare that we don't have other examples of sky panther. These are copper engravings of sky panther, and if you actually see the eye, it's kind of in the shape of a comet. So this one is from the Hiwassee mound builder culture. Again, this is cited in Carr et al. 2021. This is a more famous one. Again, you see those comet indentations in the face. This one was found in Georgia, again affiliated with the mound builder culture and what's known as the copper culture. There was a prehistoric copper culture in the East Coast that actually had early forms of metallurgy. So they had big copper plates and copper spears, copper engravings. They were very into copper. And there's a question of why didn't the copper culture continue metallurgy? And the fact is because the copper was so pure that it wasn't effective as weapons. They actually went back to stone tools because they actually lasted longer. Their copper was so pure. Most people don't know that if a metal is too pure, it's really soft. So if you have a gold ring, you have to mix it with a harder metal, or else over time your gold ring is just going to erode to nothing. So the indigenous people found this out about metallurgy centuries before master craftsmen were barely doing metallurgy in Europe and the other side of the world. More meteor pictographs. Again, we go back to the Chumash. This one is cited from Grant, 1965. But this was recorded by Campbell Grant. Campbell Grant is one of the best recorded sources of a lot of the Chumash pictographs that we have currently, because again, when the Chumash were displaced and removed from their sacred sites, a lot of these pictographs were kind of left to just erode out in the open. So a lot of these diagrams of these specific meteor depictions don't exist anymore. These are the only recorded symbols and evidence of any of this pictograph art. That's not to say we don't have some of it left over. This is one of the few better preserved comet pictographs from the Chumash. As you can see, there's the actual meteor or comet, and there are the tail that kind of goes down. The tail actually extends further to right about here. This was just the best photo we could find for this specific presentation. Finally, as we wrap up comets, one of the most interesting comet stories is the chasing star Katsina. This is shown with permission by Phil. Phil's art is actually, I believe, currently on exhibit here. So after the show, maybe you guys can wander into the gallery and see Phil's art. But Phil has what's known as the chasing star Katsina. So this is the name of the chasing star Katsina. I will let Phil say the name. Because I'm not going to do it justice. But as you can see on the face of the Katsina, there is a star. And the story goes, if you see shooting stars at night, those are said to be the Hopi chasing star Katsina, chasing each other through the night. So they're kind of playing like a star game. And so it was a great privilege to kind of witness a shooting star for the Hopi. From here we go to star charts. So we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of how sophisticated was indigenous astronomy pre-first contact or pre-Spain. This is a Pawnee star chart. This artifact is currently in the Field Museum of Chicago. At first it looks pretty cluttered, but we can see this is possibly the Milky Way. You can see kind of certain constellations, but what we did is we teamed up with the planetarium to kind of take a deep dive. These were the constellations that we were sure that it was depicting. So you have the Big Dipper right here. You have the Little Dipper right there. There's the North Star. This is possibly Gemini. This is the Corona Borealis, so that circle right there. We think this is Scorpius, and on this side of the Milky Way, it gets kind of questionable. So we think these might be planets, Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter when they're aligned, possibly Pleiades. Again, a deeper dive is needed into the star charts, but you do see that there was a very sophisticated mapping of the stars going on. This wasn't just with the Pawnee, though. This is, again, the Chumash, love stars. This is a prehistoric cave that was found in Southern California that looks very sophisticated, looks very complicated, but you don't really know what you're looking at. This is a small portion of what is a larger cave system map. So that figure right there, again, that big dude right there, that is this guy right here. And what you get is a really cool mix of names. So you get formations like Cassiopeia, Perseus, but you also get Sagitta down here, Lyra, Ayala. And it's kind of conjecture, like how do we know this is Pegasus? How do we know this is Andromeda? Well, when we did a overlap of this Chumash star chart, we found that it actually lines up pretty good. So again, this is the Milky Way. We have Pegasus. We have Lyra. We have Cassiopeia. If we go back, we have Pegasus, Cassiopeia, and Lyra. So they are actually mapping out very accurately certain points of the stars when they reach a certain season. Because remember, our planets are also in rotation around the sun. So we see certain constellations in different parts of the sky at different parts of the year. So they're timing this with a specific time of the year that they actually mapped out all of these stars that were visible in Southern California at the time, which is just insane that they were able to map out such a sophisticated star map. Finally, one of the last star charts we see is actually very tiny, but it's also very unique. This is known as a deer bone whistle. This is from Hudson et al., 1978. The deer bone is wrapped in leather, and these white beads are actually stars that are mapped out as you rotate them. So you can see the Pleiades right here, this is credited to the Pleiades. You could see what's known as the star Betelgeuse. I did not name the star, but that's the name of the star. So that's this formation of stars right here. And they even cover Orion, the Pleiades, and Cassiopeia. So this was another way for them to map the stars on a piece of bone that they then wrapped up in kind of a three-dimensional star map. Finally, we get into some star symbolism. So this is a star drum that is from the Tarahumara nations, but their actual name is the Raramuri, or the Raramuri. So this is the actual indigenous name. Not a lot of people know that a lot of Native American nations were given Spanish names. Because again, first contact, 1500 AD, that's when Spain touched down in North America and they just started naming everything. They didn't bother to ask the indigenous people, hey, what's your name? Didn't happen. So this is the actual name of the Tarahumara. This star drum is actually huge. In fact, it's on the projection screen. This is probably close to life size, how big these drums actually got for these ceremonies. So they are painted back and front with certain star patterns. They're used for various ceremonies. You can see them using them right here. These are other more contemporary star patterns that are done for tourism, but they still are more suited in traditional painting of the stars. And they are actually used for even their marathon ceremony because the Tarahumara or the Raramuri are credited as some of like the best runners in the world. So their name even means fleet-footed in their indigenous tongue. Then one of the other larger, because again the question is, well, how far back does star dating date? You know, and the oldest thing I could find, not to say this is the oldest, but the oldest thing I could find is this is what's known as Paleo-Indigenous. It's credited with being roughly 5000 BC. Now this date is taken from these citations, Adel 1984 and Miglai 2004. This is what's known as a solstice glyph. So it's actually aligned with a solstice. It points at certain stars during certain times of the year. This one, I believe, is in Wyoming, and they have trouble dating it because this geoglyph, so a petroglyph is a small pecked piece of art. A geoglyph is huge. It's ginormous. It's kind of like the Nazca lines in Peru. Those are credited as geoglyphs. This geoglyph was reused throughout centuries. And one of the first ways they tried to date it was each of these holes had wooden posts that they would use to align with the stars and with certain ceremonies. The issue happened was they were getting certain different dates for each post because, again, they're dating the wood because you can easily date the carbon in the wood. They got like too many dates. So that kind of told them, okay, we got to back off. This isn't reliable because they are using this geoglyph over centuries. So they kind of had to find a different way of dating. This is the last date I got, and this is from the National Park Service with these citations. That said, this is one of the oldest instances in North America that we have of mapping or mapping or tracking a celestial event. And it is actually still intact today. So this is the actual geoglyph. And the National Park Service, even when researching this geoglyph, even saw that to this day, it still lines up where the sun rises and the sun sets in certain solstice events. So it's still a working calendar, an ice age working calendar. Like, think about that for a second. One of the last stories we're going to cover is our Milky Way story. So I did this drawing specifically for this talk. This is the first time any of you guys are seeing this drawing. So this is kind of our creation story for the Milky Way. So this is an elder who is harvesting what's known as a bean that we eat, and it is credited by being a gift from the heavens because this is one of the few pieces of agriculture that can actually grow in the Southwest. It thrives in heat and needs very little water. It flourishes throughout the year. It's kind of a miracle food. And the story goes that an estranged grandson went to actually live among the stars, and the grandfather was looking for his grandson. He didn't know where he went. And the grandson, seeing his grandfather looking for him, took pity on him, so he plucked a star and created what was known as, let me see, where's the story? I wrote so much. There it is, Statoa Bavi. So Statoa Bavi is the name of the white star fruit or star bean that feeds the people. And basically he taught him how to harvest the bean, how to throw it up in the air and kind of catch the meat of the bean. And the grandson told his grandfather, every time you harvest this and you look up to the sky, you will see the Milky Way and you will see where I live. And you will never feel alone knowing that I gave you food to feed our people forever. Basically, because the desert is a harsh, harsh place to live. So our name for the Milky Way is Mashketoma. So that's Mashketoma. And so you see basically the beans being thrown in the formation of the Milky Way. And this is even a star pattern that we have in one of many Otham baskets that are kind of sold everywhere now. But at the time, they were very special. It's a 5-sided star. So it's one of our cooler creation stories that is tied to a white tepiary bean that's still harvested to this day. In fact, if you go to the Indigenous Cafe at the Heard Museum, you can even eat white tepiary bean hummus with fry bread. Delicious. Highly recommend. So with that said, I want to say special thanks to everybody here, Eric Edelman, Phil, Andy Christensen, Lisa Anderson, the TIS Gallery, Emery Riddle, Jim and Linda Lee Planetarium, and the Natural History Institute for hosting this talk. These are my handles. And along with this, one last thing. So I'm going to leave this up. This is an event happening this weekend. I encourage everybody to go there because I'll be volunteering, but not only that. One of the last artifacts I'm going to show you is this guy. This is a Pai pottery piece, and on the lid is actually a star pattern. So to this day, we still utilize the stars for a lot of our culture and art. So if you guys are available this weekend, definitely go there. The Pai will be there selling their wares. I got this for a steal. So I encourage you to take advantage of the event. That said, let's go ahead and open it up to questions.
Let's give Joshua a big round of applause first.
All right.